How do you go from a stack of steel and a slab of lumber to a table that is a combination of steel and wood? In this episode, we will look at how to build a steel and wood table, how to attach all the components, and go through the welding, routing, and joinery that's needed. Welcome to Making the Space. This is Pat Schuff. We are continuing our welding series, and we're going to begin by building some simple legs that go underneath the table, and then how to attach those legs with flat steel plates, screws, and wood insert screws to set a table to hold some flowers. So the design has to start somewhere. Right now we are using a storage box that holds a bunch of orchids in front of a window. Measuring the depth of the box is about 12 inches. The width of the box is about 36 inches, which is the standard size for a window. The next step is go to the lumberyard that specializes in live edge slabs. Find something that's about 12 inches in width and, more importantly, what's on sale. Once we found a board that was the key four criteria, the right width, the right length, the right color, and the right price, we purchased it and brought it home. This is easily the most expensive part of the project. A live edge slab of red elm is about $190. It was one of the cheaper ones in the color range that we were looking for, so it fit the bill. Now that we know the width of our live edge slab and the height that we'd like to have it, typical table height about 30 inches, we can design the legs. So we'd like a 12-inch width bracket along with a 29-inch riser with a flat plate of steel attached to the table. Now that we know how much steel we need, we can go shopping for it. Amazon is a good place to look to find out how expensive things are. It is not the place to buy steel because of shipping and the amounts you get for the price. $40 will get you an 8-foot section. We can go to a local steel supplier and get 24 feet for about $25. So we opted to go to Texas Iron and Metal, which is a local supplier. Some of the basic tools we'll need to get started: a chop saw to cut the steel, some magnetic angle holders to make sure we can fit a 90-degree angle, some clamps, measuring tools, some scrap flat steel, and standard welding supplies: gloves, mask, cutters, and a welding machine. We start by cutting all of the steel at a 45-degree angle so that we don't have any exposed joints. Everything is welded at 45 degrees. The chop saw is really good at this. You can turn the guide base and cut a 45-degree angle. Towards the end here, I realized I made a mistake, had to go back and resaw everything at 90 degrees because where it meets the table is a 90-degree flush angle. The idea is to take a flat plate that will go flat against the wood. We got some scrap steel and then cut it to size, random size, didn't really need to be a fixed size, so that we could drill a screw hole in, screw this into the wood. So I had to go back and cut the legs flat in, which dropped the table maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch, but not that critical. Now that we have all the steel cut, the next job is grinding the edges that we're going to weld. The burnish on the steel, to keep it from rusting, doesn't weld very well. So the idea is you have to grind down the points that you're going to weld so that the weld has a much better chance of holding. The magnetic angle brackets are really good at creating corners. The cuts don't have to be perfect, but you'd like to get the outside tips aligned. When you weld, it will kind of fill in those gaps if there are any issues or problems. Bolting or clamping this down and then welding it is relatively straightforward. You start with a tack weld, then you go back and fill in, and you'd like to get one side, grind it, flip it over, do the other side, then do all the joints, and then go back and grind down the excess steel that is not flat to make it a nice smooth surface. Now that we have the basic shape of the legs done, we need to weld the flat steel plates to the ends to A, cap off the steel, and B, provide a place where we can generate a screw hole that screws the base into the wood. With these two things, this will be a relatively rigid, stable foundation for the table. So a few days later, we have finished the steel legs. We've primed them, we've sanded it, we've painted it, we've got it in a state that we're happy with. We need to drill a hole that will take the screws that we're using to hold the steel to the wood. We bring the legs back to the metal shop and use the drill press or a handheld drill to drill a hole that would fit the screws. The screws that are used to attach the steel to the table are two-part. The first part is a wood screw that screws into the bottom of the tabletop. The second is a metal screw that screws into the wood screw. Both of these are available on Amazon. They're hard to find in hardware stores. It was much easier to order them online. For added stability, I took a router with a trim bit and routed out around where the steel plate would go, and then a drill bit and drilled through the steel into the wood so that we could insert the wooden insert with a little bit of epoxy into the wood hole. It was relatively easy to use the machine screw to screw the wood screw all the way into the tabletop. Repeated this 4 times and then mounted the metal legs on the bottom side of the table. The 2 final items for this project is a wood stain. We went with a golden oak, which is a very light stain, and some cork felt bottoms to go on the steel because it will be sitting on hardwood. Overall, it was easy to put it together, it was easy to stain, and relatively simple project from here on. This project turned out nice. It exercised metalworking skills, woodworking skills, finishing skills for a total cost of about $250. Hopefully this will be a simple project that somebody else could follow. The hard part is access to a welding lab. The rest of it is relatively simple.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.